A significant shift is quietly unfolding in Philippine defense policy, one that could reshape the country's military posture for decades to come. The armed forces of the Philippines, particularly the Philippine Navy, is preparing for a critical inspection of Japan's Abukuma-class destroyer escorts, signaling a potential transfer of Japanese naval assets to Manila. This development is not just another procurement discussion. It represents a strategic opportunity emerging at a crucial moment in regional security. For years, the Philippines has pursued a slow but deliberate path toward military modernization. Budget constraints, bureaucratic hurdles, and shifting political priorities have often delayed progress. Yet today, the landscape is changing. Growing security challenges in the West Philippine Sea, combined with stronger defense partnerships, are pushing Manila to act with greater urgency. The possible acquisition of Abukuma-class ships is one of the clearest signs yet that the Philippines is serious about closing long-standing capability gaps. What makes this moment particularly important is timing. Japan, long restricted by its post-war defense policies, is now expanding its security cooperation with like-minded nations. The Philippines stands to benefit from this shift, especially as both countries prepare to implement the Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, scheduled to take effect in September 2025. With legal and diplomatic barriers steadily falling away, opportunities that once seemed unthinkable are now firmly on the table. But what exactly are the Abukuma-class destroyer escorts? Why are they relevant to the Philippine Navy? And how could their transfer change the balance of maritime security in contested waters? To understand the significance of this inspection, we need to take a closer look at the ships themselves and the strategic environment in which they may soon operate. The Abukuma-class ships were built for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, JMSDF, during the late stages of the Cold War. First commissioned in the late 1980s, these vessels were designed as multi-role surface combatants, optimized for escort missions, maritime patrols, and anti-submarine warfare. While they are not new by modern standards, they were constructed with high-quality Japanese shipbuilding standards, an important factor when assessing their remaining service life. Displacing close to 2,000 tons, the Abukuma-class occupies a space between smaller patrol vessels and full-sized destroyers. This makes them particularly attractive for navies like the Philippines, which require flexible ships capable of performing multiple missions without the massive operating costs associated with larger warships. These vessels are equipped with a combination of sonar systems, surface-to-air missiles, anti-submarine torpedoes, and naval guns, giving them credible defensive and offensive capabilities. Their sensor suites allow them to detect submarines and surface threats, while their weapons enable them to protect other ships, conduct patrols, and assert presence in sensitive maritime zones. In essence, the Abukuma-class was designed for exactly the kind of environment the Philippine Navy now faces: crowded seas, contested waters, and the need for constant vigilance rather than high-intensity fleet battles. The Philippine Navy has made notable progress in recent years. The commissioning of the Jose Rizal-class frigates marked a major leap forward, providing modern sensors, missiles, and command systems that were previously absent from the fleet. Meanwhile, legacy platforms such as the Del Pilar-class patrol ships, Tarlac-class landing docks, and the newly renamed Miguel Malvar-class frigates continue to form the backbone of naval operations. However, challenges remain. The Navy still lacks sufficient numbers of capable surface combatants to maintain continuous presence across its vast maritime domain. Patrol requirements in the West Philippine Sea, disaster response missions, and routine maritime security operations place enormous strain on a relatively small fleet. This is where the Abukuma-class ships could play a critical role. Rather than replacing frontline frigates, these destroyer escorts could fill important capability gaps, allowing more advanced ships to focus on high-priority missions. They could be deployed for escort duties, sustained patrols, and maritime domain awareness tasks, roles that are essential but often overlooked. In practical terms, acquiring these ships could allow the Philippine Navy to do more with what it already has, increasing operational tempo without waiting years for newly built vessels to arrive. The upcoming joint visual inspection is a decisive step in the process. Philippine Navy officers will assess the ship's material condition, hull integrity, propulsion systems, combat systems, and overall readiness. This is not a ceremonial visit. It is a technical evaluation that will determine whether the vessels are viable additions to the fleet. Older ships, even well-built ones, can pose serious challenges. Maintenance costs may rise, spare parts can be difficult to source, and integration with existing command and control systems may require costly upgrades. The inspection will help Philippine planners determine whether the benefits outweigh the long-term sustainment risks. Equally important is doctrinal compatibility. The Navy must evaluate whether these ships can be effectively integrated into current operational concepts, training pipelines, and logistics structures. A ship that looks impressive on paper but does not fit existing doctrine can become a burden rather than an asset. Still, if Japan is willing to offer these vessels under favorable terms such as grants, low-cost transfers, or generous maintenance support, the equation changes significantly. What might otherwise be considered an aging platform could become a high-value force multiplier. The geopolitical context cannot be ignored. The West Philippine Sea remains a focal point of regional tension, with frequent incidents involving Coast Guard vessels, maritime militias, and naval patrols. For the Philippines, maintaining a visible and credible presence is not just about deterrence. It is about asserting sovereignty and protecting national interests. Abukuma-class ships, while not designed for high-end naval warfare against major powers, are well suited for presence operations. Their size, endurance, and sensor capabilities allow them to patrol contested areas, accompany support vessels, and respond quickly to incidents at sea. In this sense, their value lies not in raw firepower but in availability and persistence. A ship that can stay at sea longer, operate reliably, and show the flag matters greatly in maritime disputes where perception and presence carry strategic weight. This potential transfer also reflects the deepening defense relationship between Japan and the Philippines. Once constrained by legal and political limits, Tokyo is now taking a more active role in regional security. For Manila, Japan represents a reliable partner with advanced technology, shared strategic concerns, and a commitment to a rules-based order. The forthcoming implementation of the Reciprocal Access Agreement will further accelerate this cooperation. By providing a clear legal framework for joint exercises, training, and equipment transfers, the RAA removes many of the obstacles that previously slowed defense collaboration. In this environment, the Abukuma-class inspection is more than a technical assessment. It is a symbol of trust and alignment between two maritime nations facing similar challenges. One critical factor looms over this entire discussion: time. Japan is steadily modernizing its fleet, retiring older platforms as new ships enter service. The Abukuma-class vessels are available now, but they will not remain so indefinitely. Other countries are also watching Japan's surplus assets with interest. If the Philippines hesitates too long, it risks losing the opportunity altogether. Strategic decisions often depend not only on what is ideal, but on what is available at the right moment. As the inspection process moves forward, Philippine defense planners face difficult choices. Balancing budget realities against strategic needs is never easy. Yet the potential benefits are undeniable: faster capability enhancement, stronger alliance interoperability, and improved maritime security. The decisions made in the coming months will help define the future trajectory of the Philippine Navy. Whether Manila ultimately secures these Japanese destroyer escorts or not, one thing is clear: the era of cautious, limited defense engagement is giving way to a more proactive and strategic approach. While much of the attention has focused on the Philippine Navy's interest in Japan's Abukuma-class destroyer escorts, an equally consequential discussion is unfolding in the air domain. Beyond warships, defense talks between Manila and Tokyo are expanding into a far more complex and potentially transformative area: fighter aircraft. Specifically, the Philippines is preparing to examine Japan's Mitsubishi F-2 Multirole fighter, an aircraft that could dramatically alter the balance of air power in the region. For the Philippine Air Force, PAF, this represents both an opportunity and a challenge. Air power has long been one of the weakest pillars of Philippine defense. Despite recent progress, the country still lacks a true multi-role fighter capable of air superiority, maritime strike, and long-range deterrence. The possible transfer of F-2 fighters, if it materializes, could signal a historic leap forward. But what exactly is the F-2? Why is it being discussed now? And can the Philippines realistically operate such a high-performance aircraft? To answer these questions, we must examine the aircraft's capabilities, the current state of the PAF, and the strategic pressures driving this conversation. The Mitsubishi F-2 is often casually described as Japan's version of the F-16 Fighting Falcon, but that description only tells part of the story. Developed jointly by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Lockheed Martin, the F-2 is significantly larger than the standard F-16 and was designed specifically to meet Japan's maritime defense requirements. One of the most notable differences is its increased wing area, which allows it to carry more fuel and heavier payloads. This translates directly into longer range and greater endurance, two critical factors for operations over open ocean. The aircraft also features advanced Japanese avionics, a modern radar system, and compatibility with a wide array of precision-guided munitions. Perhaps most importantly for the Philippines, the F-2 was built with anti-ship warfare in mind. It is capable of deploying long-range anti-ship missiles, making it particularly effective in maritime strike roles. In a region dominated by vast stretches of water and contested sea lanes, this capability cannot be overstated. In short, the F-2 is not merely a fighter. It is a maritime strike platform, designed to defend island chains, protect sea lines of communication, and project power far from shore. To understand why the F-2 is generating so much interest, we need to look at where the Philippine Air Force stands today. The PF has made meaningful progress in recent years, most notably with the acquisition of the FA-50PH Fighting Eagle light combat aircraft. These jets have proven reliable, versatile, and cost-effective. They have performed well in air patrols, training, and limited combat roles, earning the confidence of pilots and planners alike. However, the FA-50 is by design a light fighter. While capable, it lacks the range, payload, radar power, and survivability of a true multi-role combat aircraft. In high-intensity scenarios, its limitations become apparent, particularly when facing advanced threats or operating far from base. The Philippine Air Force itself has acknowledged this gap. Long-term modernization plans consistently emphasize the need for a multi-role fighter, MRF, an aircraft capable of air defense, strike missions, and deterrence. Until now, this requirement has remained largely unmet due to cost constraints and procurement delays. This is where the F-2 enters the conversation. From a purely operational perspective, the F-2 aligns closely with the Philippines' evolving defense requirements. First, range matters. The Philippines is an archipelagic nation with vast maritime zones. Any credible air defense or strike capability must be able to operate far from central bases. The F-2's increased fuel capacity and endurance make it well suited for this environment. Second, maritime strike capability is increasingly important. Air-launched anti-ship missiles provide a powerful deterrent, allowing a defending nation to hold hostile vessels at risk without relying solely on naval assets. This is particularly relevant in contested waters, where flexibility and speed are critical. Third, interoperability with allies is a key consideration. The F-2 shares design heritage and operational concepts with U.S. aircraft, making it easier to integrate into joint exercises and combined operations with partners such as Japan and the United States. In theory, even a single squadron of F-2 fighters could significantly enhance the PF's ability to defend national airspace and contribute meaningfully to regional security. Despite its advantages, the F-2 is not an easy solution. Operating such an advanced aircraft comes with substantial financial and logistical demands. Unlike light fighters, the F-2 requires extensive maintenance infrastructure, specialized ground support equipment, and a steady supply of spare parts. Pilot training alone would involve long conversion courses, simulator access, and sustained operational flying hours. There is also the question of sustainment over time. Acquiring the aircraft is only the beginning. Keeping them operational over decades demands consistent funding and institutional commitment. Without this, even the most advanced fighter can quickly become grounded. For a country with limited defense resources, these challenges cannot be ignored. The decision to pursue F-2 fighters would require a clear, long-term strategy, one that extends beyond short-term political cycles. Japan's willingness to discuss the potential transfer of F-2 fighters is itself a reflection of changing defense policies. As Tokyo modernizes its air force, older platforms are gradually being phased out to make room for next-generation systems. At the same time, Japan has become increasingly proactive in supporting the defense capabilities of regional partners. Strengthening allied air power contributes to collective security and helps distribute the burden of regional deterrence. For Japan, Transferring selected assets to a trusted partner like the Philippines serves both strategic and diplomatic objectives. It reinforces shared interests, enhances interoperability, and signals commitment to regional stability. However, such transfers are not guaranteed. They depend on legal frameworks, political approval, and assurances that the receiving country can responsibly operate and maintain the equipment. As with the Abukuma-class ships, timing is critical. Japan's surplus assets will not remain available indefinitely. Other nations, some with greater resources, are also exploring opportunities to acquire retired Japanese platforms. If Manila hesitates too long, it may find that the window has closed. Defense modernization often involves difficult trade-offs, but indecision can be just as costly as a wrong decision. Should the Philippines successfully acquire F-2 fighters, the impact would be immediate and far-reaching. The Philippine Air Force would transition from a primarily defensive, limited capability force into one with credible deterrent power. This does not imply aggressive intent, but rather the ability to protect national interests and respond effectively to crises. In joint operations, Philippine pilots flying F-2s could operate seamlessly alongside Japanese and American aircraft, enhancing combined readiness and regional cooperation. This level of interoperability is increasingly important in a security environment defined by rapid escalation and complex contingencies. Ultimately, the discussion surrounding the F-2 is about more than aircraft. It is about whether the Philippines is ready to take the next step in its long-delayed journey toward credible air power. The choice will involve risk, investment, and sustained effort. But the alternative, continuing without a true multirole fighter, also carries significant risks in an increasingly contested region. As inspections and evaluations move forward, the Philippine Air Force faces a defining moment. The decisions made now will shape not just the fleet, but the country's ability to defend its airspace for decades to come. As discussions over Japanese warships and fighter aircraft continue, one foundational development ties everything together: the Reciprocal Access Agreement, or RAA, between the Philippines and Japan. Scheduled to take effect in September 2025, this agreement marks a historic shift in how both nations approach defense cooperation. More than a legal document, the RAA is the framework that turns possibility into action. For decades, military cooperation between the Philippines and Japan was limited by legal restrictions, diplomatic sensitivities, and historical caution. Those barriers are now falling. The RAA establishes clear rules for the entry, presence, and activities of military forces in each other's territory. In practical terms, this means joint exercises, training missions, logistic support, and most critically, equipment transfers can proceed with far fewer obstacles. This is why the potential transfer of Abukuma-class destroyer escorts and Mitsubishi F-2 fighter jets is being taken seriously now. Without the RAA, such discussions would have remained largely theoretical. With it, they become operationally and politically feasible. Defense agreements often sound abstract, but their effects are very real. The RAA creates a predictable, rules-based environment for cooperation. It clarifies legal jurisdiction, force protection, and operational procedures, issues that can otherwise stall or derail joint activities. For the armed forces of the Philippines, this agreement removes a major friction point in working with one of Asia's most capable militaries. It also aligns Japan more closely with existing Philippine defense partners, including the United States and other like-minded regional actors. Most importantly, the RA signals long-term commitment. It tells planners, commanders, and policymakers that cooperation with Japan is not a one-off initiative, but a sustained strategic partnership. If the Philippines proceeds with acquiring Japanese naval and air assets, the impact will extend far beyond individual platforms. The introduction of Abukuma-class ships would allow the Navy to expand its operational footprint almost immediately. Rather than waiting years for new-build vessels, the Navy could rapidly reinforce patrol routes, escort missions, and maritime presence operations. This is especially important in the West Philippine Sea, where continuous presence matters as much as combat capability. Ships that can stay at sea, operate reliably, and respond quickly to incidents strengthen deterrence through visibility. The potential acquisition of F-2 fighters would represent a qualitative leap. For the first time, the Air Force would possess an aircraft designed for long-range maritime strike and high-end multirole operations. This would allow the AFP to move beyond minimum deterrence toward credible defense, the ability to impose meaningful costs on any external actor seeking to challenge Philippine sovereignty. One of the most underappreciated benefits of acquiring Japanese platforms is interoperability. Modern military operations are rarely conducted alone. Exercises, patrols, and contingency responses increasingly involve multiple nations operating together. Using platforms with shared design philosophies, compatible systems, and similar doctrines dramatically improves effectiveness. Japanese systems are already designed to operate alongside U.S. forces. By adopting these platforms, the Philippines would naturally integrate more closely into allied operational networks. This enhances not only combat capability but also training quality, intelligence sharing, and crisis response. Despite the strategic advantages, none of this comes without cost. Defense modernization is expensive, and sustaining advanced platforms is often more challenging than acquiring them. Fuel, spare parts, maintenance cycles, training pipelines, and infrastructure upgrades all require long-term funding. This is where the real test lies, not in signing agreements, but in maintaining commitment across multiple administrations. Without consistent political and financial support, even the best equipment can quickly become underutilized. That said, favorable transfer terms from Japan, such as discounted pricing, phased payments, or technical assistance, could significantly reduce the burden. The challenge will be aligning ambition with fiscal reality. It is also important to consider the alternative. Failing to act does not preserve the status quo. It allows capability gaps to widen over time. Ships age, aircraft become obsolete, and training opportunities are lost. In a rapidly evolving security environment, stagnation can be as dangerous as poor decision-making. The Philippines has already experienced the consequences of delayed modernization. Rebuilding lost capabilities takes far longer and costs far more than maintaining steady progress. The decisions made by Manila will not go unnoticed. A stronger Philippine Navy and Air Force contribute to regional balance, not instability. Enhanced capabilities improve crisis management, reduce miscalculation, and reinforce the principle that disputes should be addressed through strength backed by diplomacy. From Japan's perspective, supporting Philippine defense modernization helps secure vital sea lanes and reinforces a network of capable partners. For the wider region, it signals that cooperative security arrangements are becoming the norm rather than the exception. Japan's modernization timeline means that surplus assets are available now, not indefinitely. Other countries are watching closely, and competition for capable platforms is increasing. Strategic windows rarely remain open for long. Once closed, they are difficult, sometimes impossible to reopen under the same conditions. Taken together, the inspection of Abukuma-class ships, the evaluation of F-2 fighters, and the implementation of the RAA represent more than a procurement cycle. They mark a turning point in how the Philippines approaches national defense. The AFP stands at a crossroads. Continue incremental modernization, or take a bold step toward building a force that is credible, interoperable, and prepared for the challenges ahead. The path chosen in the coming months will shape the country's defense posture for years, perhaps decades to come. Whether or not these Japanese platforms ultimately enter Philippine service, one conclusion is unavoidable. Philippine-Japan defense cooperation has entered a new era. The implications extend beyond hardware. They reflect a shared understanding of regional challenges and a willingness to act collectively in addressing them. As this developing story unfolds, one thing remains certain. Decisions made today will define the future security of the Philippines.